Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. You are very welcome to the wonderful custom arena here in Elden Ring, and joining me is the wonderful Space Ranger here using the Gug stock, which is to say the Great Ultra Great with the offhand Clean Rot versus Ruth on the dual Kibas. An exciting match. Ruth, of course, going by Miss Anthropist. Unfortunately, the recording is a little bit scuffed here, so I wasn't quite able to do any editing on it. Usually I'd have the builds up on the side there in case you'd ever want them, but I guess we're just going to crack on in just a second. This is, of course, a first of 10. Space Ranger is a phenomenal player, has numerous tournaments under his belt. An absolutely phenomenal player. You see he's out there rearing to go. The custom arena does have it so that you can't lock on, so the bolt won't actually lock in. And there we have it. You'll see as both of our players come in, we are going to see the Chilling Mist here on the Gugs. And Ruth, of course, most likely having Unsheath. Unsheath is a fantastic Ash of War. Basically turns Kibas into a trade stick. We see a nice little bit of damage there right off the bat. Out goes the jumping attack here from Ruth. And on matchup wise, I would say that it's definitely going in favor of the Kibas here. Obviously, the Gugs does have a true combo off of its crouch R1 into the off stock there, and you see Hyper Armor does come in clutch. Ruth taking a little bit of damage there. Forced back she is, and now he comes back in, tries to go for that crouch attack, is going to roll that one out. Out comes the Unsheathed there, as I just said. We do see the tier proc there. Tier Physic is very, very popular on ladder, and in comp play it's probably it's almost a must-have. Oh, that's both of their tiers gone in that exchange there, all the way across space. Having maybe some controller issues there, just kind of stands there and takes it. That's a curious one. I'm not entirely sure what he's planning. Might have been just an input drop, and Ruth is going to be roll caught by the stock. And the stock is a really nice addition because it has that ability to consistently chip things down slowly but surely. That's going to make it a very, very messy one. And of course, the Gugs, then you have a trade. You can get like 600 to 700 damage in that in a given exchange, and obviously they're going to roll it, but you are going to proc it off the ghost hits. Space, I believe, is Ukrainian, and Ruth here is, if memory serves, in the UK. And they're going to have fairly decent lat. The ghost hits aren't really going to be that much of an issue. I think I have around 60 to 70 milliseconds of latency to space, and only I'd say about 20 to 30 max on Root there. It's a really, really nice. So the lat here is going to be quite low. It is both Europe on both of them. So, you're going to see some fairly low latency matches. Well, mid lat more so than low. And it's kind of a nice one because, this is a matchup you almost never see anymore. Gugs is kind of relegated to not being brought into tournament play, simply for the fact that it's just so slow. We are going to see the physic here from both of them. We're going to see some knives. Out come the daggers, throwing daggers there as well. We are going to see that jumping attack there, and just a little bit of reassorting the camera. Out comes Storm Stomp there, which is of course a massive pick all in all. Out comes the JL1. Ruth trying to land a 510 damage from that exchange. That's a huge percentage of health bar. Oh, we're having some minor camera issues. Keeping those little bits of chip damage. Out comes the Storm Stomp again. He knows now that he has almost a guaranteed proc, at least on a ghost hit, because poise damage is done, and that's going to be a tier proc on space. 722 damage in that Unsheath. What a crazy weapon it is. And again, Roots is encouraged to trade consistently into it. We are going to see there just the resetting all statuses effect there. Again, we are using seamless co-op in order to get these custom arenas in, and I really like what they've done with it. It's fairly simple. There's not too much doohickeys. It runs well on account of being in the arenas, but I've no doubt that both of our players are playing in potato mode to try and get the maximum amount of frames as they can. Like trying to draw blood from a stone, trying to get frame rate in this game, unfortunately. And out goes the bolt there. We are going to see the physic. We're probably going to see some daggers. No, not from space this time. Ruth getting that little cheeky 45 damage there. Goes for the roll. Goes to the JL1. Not quite able to land at space. He's going to stay. He's content to just chip away slowly but surely. She has to respect the stock, just in the fact that it's consistent damage. However, that's really what she's looking for, those trades. Trading in with the Colossal there is a really great idea under normal circumstances, but when Ruth has the Unsheathed there to just completely out-damage it, 347. Doesn't go for the stock 347 again. That's going to be the tier proc. Ruth there getting that little bit of damage. Looking for a tier skip now. And as I was saying, you know, that particular tier is a fantastic option in terms of going for the physic tier. I think it's the Crimson Burst bubble tier. I can't recall off the top of my head the exact name of it. The second chance tier, the one that gives you HP at low health, is a fantastic option. It's almost a must pick at this stage. And we are 4 rounds in their first to 10. It can go to max 20. It's going to be 2-1 to Ruth. And again, on paper, I would say that the favor goes more than likely into Ruth here, as we do see the physics coming out again. And again, really, really happy with what they've done with this arena. I think that the only criticisms I really have of it so far goes for that really nice roll, goes for the Unsheathed, not quite able to connect, is the choice of arena. It's a bit dark, particularly in the corners. Oh, the aim punch there caught him. And the roll catch there with the Unsheathed was nasty. Beautiful spacing there on Ruth's part. You know, baits out the attack, tries to go for it again. However, space is quite low on the Unsheathed roll catch there yet again. And this is the second or third time space has kind of fallen for that. He's going to try and go for force those trades. But of course, Ruth, once she presses the weapon art button to lock herself into the Unsheath, she does of course have time to just immediately go for that trade, and should theoretically trade into it 90% of the time. You know, you're expecting like 50 to 60 milliseconds of latency on top of input latency and possible input drops. You know, there's things that can complicate that a little bit. Of course, going on Kibas gives you the opportunity to force those really nice trades, which is, according to Dark Soap, what I was told to do by them. It's really how you want to play it. As for what I do myself, really like the Crouch L ones. The Crouch L ones have really high damage. The JL ones have good damage as well. See that going for the Unsheath is going to eat 922 damage on that exchange. That's a lost exchange under normal circumstances. But again, the raw damage, she doesn't go for the press there, which is something I might do. That is going to be her tier proc goes to press again, is going to be punished. Now she's low. Now space has just full freedom all the way across in this fight to just bait out a whiff, go for those little bits of that small little bit of damage and get the 2 hit on the stock. And that's what he is playing for when she's that low. So it's going to be 2-3 in favor of Ruth all the time. And in the first half of this match, as we're slowly but surely approaching like that the middle of it, we'll start to see space slowly but surely adapt and figure it out. We saw some very early adaptations on the side of Ruth, who did a fantastic job of being like, okay, this is what I can get away with, this is what I can do. But space is slowly but surely starting to figure out how to get around it. Much more confident that match as he managed to land that 30 damage on her. And again, that small little bit of chip might not seem like much, but if you're on very high poise, so over the 101, forcing her back there, as we do see some of the... I'll have to adjust the character there just a little bit to fix that. Goes for that R1, not quite able to connect. And again, it's very reactable. This is why it fell out of favor. It's not like the Ultra Greatsword of old, where it was borderline unreactable, beautiful spacing there on Ruth, but not quite able to connect. Recovery was just a little bit too much, as she's going to eat 804 damage in that exchange. Baits out the Storm Stomp, not quite able to punish it. Dead angles that R1 away just in case he starts to approach. Forcing there in the middle. And, you know, Ruth has an awful lot of freedom here. Oh, goes for the strafe. Hits the Unsheath for 772. Doesn't go for the backswing as the side of Ruth. Kind of cautious about that rolling R1, which does, of course, have not the best properties. Oh, the miss space by space, funnily enough. Eating a considerable amount of damage, and then I think that was a tier skip, if memory serves. So it is a strategy that's seen in high-level play where you get someone to a certain point. And then as soon as they are just close enough to eat the damage, you then hit them with a high damage output weapon such as the Unsheathed or potentially a JL1. That's kind of the strategy to try and avoid that extra health, basically making that physic borderline useless, which is really nice. And again, the other main choice that people use in high-level matches is, of course, the Opline. unless they're up against a very silly status build, in which case then they'll use the physic tier that gives them the extra resistances, which can be very, very nice. Again, just these little exchanges. Daggers in the R2 does manage to connect, and that's going to be Ruth eating a little bit of damage there. Goes for the crouch there. Managing to get that dead angle as well. The unlocked play here on the side of Space Ranger to stop those strafes. Of course, you know, Ruth has a fairly dominant lead so far. Goes for the roll catch. Not quite able to make it. And again, that's going to reset the poise as well. 530. Damage there is going to be the chip. Oh, another 3, 5, 54, 801. And that last exchange there, Ruth's in a spot of bother, forced back, goes 546. The unsheath comes out. Is she going to be a roll cut? She is by the off stock. Again, that off stock is a really, really strong option to use in these matches. Its damage output on its own and its poise damage aren't great, but it's a fantastic roll catch option, especially when they have to respect the Gogs. It's paired very, very nicely with kind of guaranteed poise break weapons. You use it as part of the mix. So I'll L1, and then I'll mix the timings up then with the R1s, or the crouch R1s in this case with space, as we are going to see this next set go on ahead. We are going to see the crouches come out, not quite able to connect. Oh, 290, a little bit of chip nice and early on. That's kind of a good option, I would think. As we are having a little bit of a freeze, it does sort itself out. Is going to manage to land that. The L1's coming out in space again, getting that nice little bit of chip. The Unsheath comes out, standing R1 into a Storm 482. JL1 comes out, not quite able to connect it. Is going to see the attempted backswing. Is not going to land, and that's kind of Kiba. Kiba is a really nice moveset that's kind of built around these poise numbers, in the sense that you can land your R1, you have a solid option then for your follow-up R1, if they roll the first one, to be able to actually land the second half of it. Of course, it basically means that on latency, so that is to say the distance between the players, she goes for the strafe, but it's not quite able to connect. The crouch L1 does come out, but it's not able to land. Forces her back, though, with the poke on the side of the stock, and it's so low recovery as well. But as I was saying, you know, the stock has some really nice... The Kiba, sorry, has some really nice options, considering you can guarantee that you're going to be poise broken in one hit almost constantly if you time it correctly. We don't see it so much here as the crouch R1s come out. It's probably, in terms of like the one-handed moveset, the best one is we see the tier pop here on the side of space, who forces Ruth back. Oh, Ruth managing to land it. Do we see the... No, we do not see the backswing there. Would have been, of all the times to see it, and they're running L1 does land it. I think the only problem with power stance keepers is that the running and standing L1s just aren't great. The jumping and the crouch is really, really good, is really high damage. And further from that, the moveset itself is actually pretty cool. But, having the two parts to both the standing and running really kind of takes away from the setup. People can kind of trade with it in impunity, and if you mess up your inputs going for the crouch and you do that running instead, it can be rather nasty. It's not a good time to be playing. But we are going to see the Chilling Mist here come out on the side of Space Ranger. Oh, trading 290 there. It's 5-3 on the side of space. He forces her back there on that one. She manages to land a little bit of damage with the rolling attack. His poise is going to be reset now, unfortunately, due to the fact that, oh, out it comes there. That is going to be the Chilling Mist. Do we see? I'm not sure if we saw the prop. We see at that time, though. 456 in that exchange. Force back now as the side of space. Space has some nice options here all the way across, and I will be aware in future that the camera will do this if I'm not looking in the right direction. This will be fixed in future. You see, oh, 832, that exchange. Ruth trying to bait out some backstab pressure. Space is having none of it. JL1 comes out, not quite able to connect. Unsheath whiffing again. It's been a hot minute since she's landed any of them. She should have that degree of freedom. She tries to outspace the crouch attack and unfortunately eats it. Ruth is the right battle, has kind of the right plan here. Oh, and that's going to be the tier proc. Force back down to the side of Ruth. She's in the corner. This is a bad time to be Ruth. She does manage to get out. We see the Unsheath come out. Tries to go for the backswing. Not quite able to connect. And we do see the red and blue feather come out again. Another staple of tournaments. Force back down as Ruth. 113 damage there. And that little, it's just these little love taps coming out. She's so low. Is she going to be able to do it? No, she does not manage to do it. Honestly, she should have been better off just like spamming the R1 button from from that one hit. Again, space could very well have tanked both of them. That is a possibility. But as we move on to round 10, as I do fix it, there we go. That can be a very good option, though, going for those, just sometimes just spamming. Catching your opponent completely off guard, that's a really good strategy. That's a really, it throws people off more often than not, and you see me here fixing the camera because I'm not entirely sure why I'm having the issues I was having, making sure that both players are in view, sorted out. I think we should be done with any of the the weird camera glitches we were getting there just a moment ago as the bolt is out. Physics are drag. Players are throwing their knives. They've rehearsed this. I'm fairly sure of it. 6,991, 1,200 damage in that exchange. And this is, you know, neither of these setups are used all that often in comp play. Gugstock most certainly isn't used all that often. And the Unsheath is a really good idea into it, because if she calls out the stock, she has an option to unsheath into it, and it's no guarantee that his recovery is going to be low enough to get away. It's a really solid strategy. However, we are seeing now, more so than ever, we are seeing Space Ranger adapt his playstyle accordingly. Oops, we do see the camera being adjusted so we can get both of our participants on screen. We probably will see the bolt out now in just a second. Not that we will see it, but they will hear it. You'll probably hear it on the recording side as well. As we do see the physic here from both of our players. The dagger comes out, not quite able to connect. The chilling mist. Almost getting that roll catch again, and that's 213 damage in that exchange. Managing to clip 827, and that's all the stock. You know, one-handed S stock was strong in 3. It elevated an awful lot of setups. Oh, the trade there, and that's what Space is looking to call out. If he can get a solid read on Ruth's patterns, he could do a really good job of just calling them out with the hyper armor weapon. And I don't believe her recovery 772, 1,000 damage, 386, and that's going to be the first reset, which is a null point for both of our combatants. Again, this is round 11. This could have very... Oh. Unfortunately, I do manage to change the wrong... I'm watching this in post, and it's always fun to watch my little mistakes. I'm not going to lie. Yep, GG. GG, though. Half the fun of it, ladies and gents. But, you know, you're about just over halfway through here. I hope you are enjoying it so far. If you'd like more content like this, you know, just be sure to comment down below that this is something you're interested in. We are going to see that jumping R1 come out. And again, the R1s are really nice. The run R2s are really nice. They have good range. The Kiba's actually a really interesting weapon, one-handed. Two-handed, unfortunately, it's not great. But we do see they're called out by the stock. 1,300 damage between the Frost proc and just those L1s just do so much. Force back now as the side of Ruth goes to the rolling. No rolling attack. I would have thought a rolling attack would have been a really smart idea there in the side of Space. But I suppose he is worried about getting whiff punished if he does miss a 503. So I'm just going to be... Oh, the Storm Stomp. Ruth is not allowed to aggress when he has access to that, and now she knows it. 255. Is she going to be pushed back? 135 pushed back, and that's going to be Ruth. Gone. Ouch. That's a messy one. And it's round 13. We are going to see it. The score is going to be 5-6 to the side of Space Ranger now, who's pulling into the lead slowly but surely as we do adjust our camera so we can see both of our contestants. But yeah, it's an interesting little matchup. The mind game potential on both of them is actually pretty nice. The real question is if Ruth calls out the stock with some of the high damage options she has access to. That's really the question in this matchup, and we see even, and then the question, just like so, is whether or not Space comes out then with the crouch R1. As we do see these stray R1s coming out from neutral here. Ruth forced back once again. Spacing starting to fail a little bit. 355 goes for that deep. The horizontal attack there, actually, weirdly enough, is we are going to see the tier proc, I would imagine, from space here. Both of our contestants are pretty low. Ruth forced into a corner now. Is Space going to give it the space, funnily enough, to get out? He does, weirdly enough. I would have thought he'd have pressured her, but he's fairly low himself. We may have seen the swaps over to the red and blue feather to get the extra damage and absorption. Ruth keeping up that pressure, goes to the run R1, is going to be punished. She could have stayed in there and traded. I think she would have actually won it. Goes to the JL1, not quite, barely misses. She whiffs the run R1 and is going to get put away. That's going to be 7-5 on the side of Space Ranger. That's just unfortunate is what that is. And I think as well as like, it could be just a mental game. She's afraid constantly of getting clipped by the... I think she's just quite afraid of getting caught out by that Gugs. The Frost proc as well can be very, very handy. Again, we're going to see a little bit of that int just built in, just so we can have that opportunity. I would have been curious as to what the swaps would have been here on the side of Space. That would have been a curious one. We are going to see now the little circular motion goes for that. It's going to be whiff punish there for 273 there. Yet again, the unsheath comes out 671, 944. Is going to be managed to get away with it though, as we do see the setups here for the Gugs. Is going to get the roll catch. Tragic. Goes to the L1. Backstab pressure still exists, as we aren't going to see a backswing come out there on the side of Ruth. Ruth keeping out, managing to space it out, and then the run L1 then to finish it. Again, those run L1s, they're slow, they're telegraphed. You can trade into the first half of it and do insane amounts of damage. It's not a great plan. I'd imagine that's a misinput. It's going to be 6-7 here to Space. Ruth clawing it back slowly but surely. You know, we're on round 15. It's got to be messy, but curious now to see how this next one is going to go, because you know this could break the back of the match. If Space manages to continue his lead and keep it going from here, keep up that momentum, it's going to be a nasty time. But Ruth's no, she might be much newer to Elden Ring. I know she was a DS3 player and a very proficient one, especially in late DS3, and you know, played through the private servers, etc. Yeah, it can be rough adapting to a new game, especially one that's so knowledge check heavy. And I feel that might be happening here. Not confident quite so much in her spacing. 273 tries to go for the roll catch, not able to do it. 273 again. The unlocked plays here on the side of Space, managing to catch those. Goes for this L1 again. I can't help but wonder if that's another misinput. You know, it is very easy, especially if you're trying to go for those goblin steps. The rolling L1 comes out, not quite able to connect. Yeah, forcing them back. Goes for that again. Called out. And we do see those stray R1s come out. Honestly, she could be nearly better just throwing at these R1s, going for those whiff punishes. Maybe going for the CL1 then every now and again to just go for those high damage options all the way across. And we see this very intricate spacing game being played out. Goes to the unsheathed, threatening the crouch L1. That's tragic. That was actually tragic. And then to finish it off, then the combo. And that combo is so nice. Funnily, the slowest thing that will trade into crouch R1 of a colossal sword is actually a heavy thrusting. Wouldn't help but wonder if the heavy thrusting might be a good one if he wants to play more around that combo. But you do, if you manage to connect, and I believe it's the second frame, you will end up with the halberd being another solid option. Halberd, of course, being very footy. As we do see that physic coming out there, managing to catch Ruth there, 20 damage there in that exchange. Going for it once again, 227, and another exchange here as well. You know, I wouldn't, the halberd can land as well, but it's going to be frame specific. I believe if it hits in anything but the first frame, it will connect. First or second of the hitbox frames, I'll have to check that. Oh, 772 there in that exchange. Really, really nice one for Ruth. Doesn't manage to get any momentum off it. Again, Space is a cool customer. Tries to go for the roll catch. Is going to eat 227 damage for their worries. Ruth forced back now once again. Kind of evened it out an awful lot. Space is playing this really smart. He goes for that crouch R1. Is managing to connect. 692, 921 all the way through in that exchange. Yeah, but I think that the highest damage I can get on a straight up dex build. Oops, we are seeing more camera problems. That's unfortunate. That is not lag or latency or anything like that. That is just a byproduct of me not being in the right position for the camera. Space here, taking up center, keeping her in the corner. But he has to be careful himself. He could get an awful lot of damage. This could be over in about 2 hits for, and 1 hit, I believe, for Ruth. And there you go. That's the true combo. That's 8-6 on the side of Space Ranger. Space has figured it out. He's found the special sauce. Ruth, however, has gotten lost in the sauce, and we're kind of seeing it here. You know, it's a fun matchup. I wouldn't consider this a comp match by any stretch. They're playing around with new ideas, interesting ideas, kind of fun. Weird setups. Well, at least on the side of Space Ranger, very strange setup. And Ruth, of course, playing around with something that I haven't seen her play around before. She's been mostly going halberd, S-stock, halberd, dagger, and of course has the access to halberd, S-stock as well. And straight sword she's been using. She played a little bit with combats. Kind of playing with a little bit of everything. Going there, hitting up center here, going for the Storm Stomp, and Storm Stomp she's over aggressed. Space knows he can do it again. Does get away with it that time though. We're not going to see Ruth take that extra little bit of damage. Ruth's under pressure. She's on the back foot. Goes to the rolling R1. Not quite able to connect. We see the Unsheath come out there from neutral. And you see that a lot, you know. Something we didn't see here from the side of Ruth. And again, it's just a setup she's not comfortable with. They're both playing around with some cool ideas. Always fun to see. Is we didn't see those turnaways in the Unsheath if she is going to whiff it. Oh, 546 damage. That tries to go for the strafe there. 691. Dangerous if the other person knows you're going for those strafes and think they can get away with it. Goes for the Unsheath there again. And the backstab then to finish it off, I reckon. Oh, no, still alive. And then, there you have it. A backstab into a roll catch L1 to finish it off, ladies and gentlemen. That is that. What an exceptional showing here from Space Ranger. You know, in the matchup, I'd still put it on the side of the Nagakiba. But he just showed his mettle, and even a setup that I don't think I've ever seen him use this before. It's an interesting one, plays off a combo, has nice chip damage consistently. Again, I put up the build here, only the editing software has completely messed up. And there's, of course, Ruth on the dual Kibas again. A newcomer to the game and really doing fantastically well against probably one of the better European players on the side of Space Ranger. And from me and from everyone, thank you all so very much. It has been a blast. I'm hoping to do more of these, ladies and gents. And that was Space versus Ruth as we got to round 17 there. Space Ranger taking the win. But I hope to see you all again soon, and take care.